Hey, welcome to episode 2 of Conversations with Eve. And happy Mother's Day to all the dope moms out there, all right? Don't let anyone discourage you or tell you different. You're a dope mom. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about motherhood. Because, baby, let me tell you, motherhood is the hardest job us as women will ever have. You know, these kids don't come with manuals. There's no right or wrong, you know, when it comes to how you love and protect your kids. You know, everyone has their own set of parenting skills, and sometimes we don't understand and we don't agree. But what we must do is respect, right? Respect someone's parenting skills and the way they choose to bring up their kids and how they choose to handle their kids. You know, I personally, I had my first at 26, and it was a challenge in itself. It was a challenge being a single parent at that time and trying to raise a child and trying to steer in the right direction and trying to find patience and trying to find time and trying to break certain generational traits that were not beneficial. So, for example, I knew as an adult, I'm not gonna say I know now as an adult, right, that my mom loved me with everything in her. But her love language was keeping a roof over my head, feeding me, taking me to nursing me back to health when I was sick, school shopping, all those things, going to parent-teacher conference, stuff like that. But in my entire life, my mom passed when I was in my 30s. So in my entire life, I only remember her saying, "I love you" once. We never did things like go to the park, go to the zoo, family activities. It was work and church. She went to work every day. She woke up at the crack of dawn. She was walking in the door when the street lights came on. She was on her knees at 5 a.m. every morning, on her knees at 8 p.m. every night. She was church, work, church, and provide. And as a kid and as a teen, that didn't look like love. And sometimes it didn't feel like love, you know. And then when I went to like friends' homes and I saw the opposite, it was, you know, one of those wow moments. But when they say truly you learn and you realize things as you become an adult, it's so true. Because I look back now and yes, you know, would I have loved to have been told, "I love you"? Of course. But did my mom love me? Absolutely. And I also take into consideration that she was raising me based on how she was raised, because that's all she knew and that's what she was presented with. And her mother and father were providers, her mother and father were protectors, and her mother and father kept a roof over her head and may not necessarily have said "I love you." And they were raised in Haiti where they didn't have the luxuries of going to the park and the zoo and all those things that we do with our kids these days, right? But I have no doubt in my mind as an adult and as I parent myself that my mother loved me with everything in her. With everything in her. And so I am grateful for what she did introduce me to as a kid. And the biggest thing is prayer. Yeah, she introduced me to prayer. She introduced me to God. She introduced me to, we spent a lot of time in church as a child. I was in church most days, maybe 6 out of 7 days a week. And even though as an adult, I have different views when it comes to religion, and that's another conversation. Prayer, however, has always been and will always be the center core of me. And I pray through everything. And sometimes I, and even when I feel like my prayers are hitting the ceiling and bouncing back down, because sometimes we feel that, I still pray. And my mom was the individual that introduced me to that and told me that in all things I must pray. And that's every single day. And even when things are good, I must pray. And so now, fast forward to me, when I have my children, I absolutely always tell my kids that they need to pray. Learning to properly express feelings, learning to have those sit down one-on-one difficult conversations, learning to let go sometimes, and learning that there may come a time when you absolutely love your kids and you love them to the core of who you are, but you must release and you must let them go experience life and let life kind of sort of beat them down a little bit, even though that is the hardest thing for you as a parent to sit back and watch and sit back and allow to happen. Sometimes you have to just let life take control. And because I've learned, like, I could tell my kids the same thing and they go and they seek someone else's advice and that person verbatim says the same thing, and they'll take that and run with it. But sometimes they don't take what we as moms say because, we're just trying to ruin their lives. But the hardest part of being a mom for me was stepping back and just releasing and just saying, you know what? I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to cover you. I'm going to ask God to keep you, but I'm going to let you go and I'm going to let you experience life. And I pray that life doesn't do what life can do, and that is tear you apart. I pray that it has mercy on you, but I still want you to learn something. And I had to do that. And it was hard, but I had to. And to some extent, life did give the lesson. And to some extent, there has been growth. To some extent, there has been maturity. Is there still immaturity? Absolutely. But again, life will continue to do what life does. but I just wanted to give, I guess, a brief word of encouragement to moms out there that may feel as though they have failed, may feel as though they haven't done the best job at being a mom, or may feel that they could have done better. Because, I mean, we all could have, right? There's always something that we could look back at and say, wow, I could have handled this situation better. I could have said something or expressed myself better, or I could have put aside my frustration and anger and approached this situation or that situation with a little bit more compassion and love. There's always something. There's always going to be something. We're not perfect. And motherhood did not come with a manual, will not come with a manual. I think you do the best, the very best that you absolutely can. And everyone will be okay. Your kids will be okay. You will be okay. Everything will work itself out in the end. Just, keep them in prayer. Stay prayed up. Don't beat yourself up. You were given this task because God knew you could handle it. We also need to sometimes really understand that we are trusted by God and given these kids to raise and to help them maneuver through life. But we don't own them, right? Someone once said to me that, our kids are not ours to own. They have their own personalities, they have their own dreams and visions, and we can't impose our lives and the things that we may have wanted to accomplish and never accomplished and try to put it on them and try to make them or live through them. They have to live their own lives, and we must find our own way. And that was an eye-opener for me. It was a lesson for me as well, because we have these visions for our kids and what we may want them to be, what we may want them to do in life, the direction we want them to go. And then when they grow up and they go the absolute opposite direction, we're like, but it's their lives. It's absolutely their life. And sometimes we have to kind of, as hard as it is, allow them to experience that life. And whatever direction it takes them, sometimes it'll produce blessings on top of blessings, and sometimes they'll realize it's not the right direction. But that's all for them to figure out, especially when they get to a certain age. You get them through elementary school, you get them through middle school, you get them through high school, and then they're in college. And we still want to have that reign, and we still want to have that control, and we still want to tell them, no, you don't do that, do this. No, I don't think you should go that route. I think you should go this route. No, I don't think that should be your major. Your major should be, and then, we have to kind of take a moment and step back and say, all right, literally, we can have the conversations, but in the end, the decision is their own. My youngest wanted to get a job, and you know, I'm okay with it. But she wanted to work in another borough that I felt was a bit dangerous, and I felt the commute would have been exhausting, and the transit system in New York City has gotten pretty bad with crime and all this other stuff. So I said, you know, I expressed my views on it, but in the end, I just said, you know, this is how I feel about it. But you do what you feel is best for you. You know what I mean? And then I absolutely went and prayed and said, God, please, you know, just listen, please. And, you know, and she made the decision that was best for her. And whatever that decision would have been, had it not been the decision that I would have liked her to make, I would have had to just accept it and deal with it and hope and pray that things worked out, you know, because my kids weren't like me. They weren't raised like me. I was raised, you know, riding the trains, riding the buses, walking. My ability to pick up on when someone was following me, or if there were dangers around, you know, my kids weren't raised like that. They were driven everywhere. They had, you know, between me and their dad, you know, they had car rides everywhere. They weren't in the streets like that. They didn't ride public transportation like that. They literally oblivious to the dangers out there. And so I had a conversation with someone a while ago, and I was like, you know, oh, when you raise your kids like that, did we do an injustice? Or, you know, and for some people might be like, yeah, you kind of did, because they need to know how to survive out there, and they need to know how to maneuver, and they need to know, you know, they need some kind of street smart, and they need to understand the dangers that are out there. And then others are like, absolutely not. You protected them, you kept them, you sheltered them, and that is fine. So again, everyone has their own way of mothering. So I want you today, on Mother's Day, to pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself, continue to do the best that you can do. Don't let anyone tell you that you didn't do it right, aren't doing it right. As a mother, your gut will lead you, will direct you. You'll make mistakes, but you'll fix them. You'll have memories to look back on. Your kids will appreciate everything that you've ever done for them, even if they do not right now. But I want you to know that you are the greatest gift that God has placed on here, on this earth. And to be a mom is a challenge, but it's an absolute blessing as well. And so today I want you to enjoy, whether you're spending it with your kids, whether you're spending it with family, whether you're spending it at home alone, whatever it is that you're doing, enjoy it. And have the best possible day that you can have. And as women, as moms, as, you know, Black women, we must be each other's encouragement. And so today, I end conversations with Eve saying, Happy Mother's Day. You're doing it. You got this. You rock. Until next time, thank you for joining me.